It's like when you work something, all of a sudden you realize it's like in Pennsylvania.
Okay, let's bring the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to ask you to remain standing for a moment of silence for resident Bob Wood, who has passed away. Thank you. All right, we have no agenda, so we are moving right to public input this evening. Hearing none.
State my name, or are we okay? Okay, my name is Darrell Moore, I'm a resident of Lebanon. I just have a couple of questions. One is, I understand obviously we've been taking money out of the general fund. Why not be using the contingency fund? That's what it's set up for, right? Why aren't we using that?
That's an option. That's something that we can do.
That should be the first thing we go to.
But the issue actually has been just brought to our attention again by the treasurer since I've been in just only a couple months ago, that this has been coming from the general fund without really, for many years, without the selectmen really understanding what was going on.
So I got it right there. So you guys are the ones signing these bills.
Correct.
Correct.
Now, how they come in?
Which is why it's been changed to only necessary expenditures, medical, fuel.
Understandably so, but do they come in from the rescue department, obviously? How do these bills presented to you guys? No
From
questions?
rescue. As soon as we became aware of the issue, we stopped that and said only essential spending. But by all means, we can transfer from contingency.
That's what it's set up for.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, Darrell.
Understandably so, then why are we still taking out the general fund? You kind of- My other one comment I do have is I did see the YouTube video on Thursday's meeting. Karen, you made a comment that really probably disturbing more than anything else, and that was when you stated that Jason Cole had two hats. Jason Cole, Selectman Cole, is an elected official. Okay? His appointment is by who, as far as assistant rescue chief?
Darrell, I said what I said.
No, please hear me out.
Okay.
Okay? As an elected official, he needs to be on your side of the table. Okay? If he chooses to be a man and sit next to his wife and let her answer the questions, which is my next comment, is you guys need to start treating the rescue chief like the rescue chief, not the assistant rescue chief as the chief. Jason Cole is an elected official. He needs to be on your side of the table. He cannot answer questions. He shouldn't be able to. He's an elected official, correct?
Actually, but once he's recused, he's to sit in the audience or take another
If he's
position.
recused, but he's still an elected official. You're never not selected, just
Right.
as either one of you two.
I would like to state why I said what I said.
Go ahead.
I was advised by the attorneys, Burke and Clegg, prior to the meeting to state
Okay.
that he was not to wear the selectman's hat and recuse himself from that, but by all means, as someone on rescue and assistant chief, he could partake in that discussion. I'm not going to disagree with you that he had more answers than her.
Well, I would think you guys as a board need to, I would say, approach him and have him make a decision. Either he's going to be an elected official as a selectman or an assistant rescue chief.
Darrell,
He shouldn't be both.
You know the
It's
history of the town.
not wearing two hats. It's called a conflict of interest. We all know that.
And you've seen the conflict of interest, the
Right.
ballot questions that people in this town seem to not have a problem with.
You guys are in power. Stop changing it. That's what you're in for, right, Ben?
Actually, you understand that the legal opinions will override what your opinion might be. So MMA actually has an opinion out there that a fire chief, because it's not a listing for rescue, okay, so it's gonna follow any of those same laws, would be a conflict of interest to be selectmen and fire chief.
Understandably
Okay.
so, because it's an appointed position and it's required.
Understood, I understand it quite clearly, and right now, we don't have the legal backing to pursue that, as far as forcing him to take off one hat, and therefore, that's why it hasn't been done.
Well,
If you don't like it, vote it different.
Well, it's easy to stand up and say that, but my question is, why don't you get a legal definition of conflict of interest, and see if that falls under it, and then present that to them.
Just
We
add
have- we
a thought to this discussion. I'm not trying to take his time, just, he is appointed by the department head, not by you guys, not by his own choosing. You guys can direct the department head to choose a different person. She is under your control. It's not Jason's.
We understand.
Jason does not have to recuse himself from the assistant chief. The chief can say, you're no longer the assistant chief, and I'm going to appoint somebody else, if she's directed by you guys.
No, I was saying that he needed to recuse himself as
But what I'm saying is, because what Darrell is saying is he is a selectman. That's his job. So therefore, once he got elected as that, he should have given that up. If he's going to not do it on his own, then the chief should have done it. And if the chief's not going to do it, then you guys need to direct the chief to do it. That's how you get around this without any legal issues. The chief works for you guys. She's a department head, just like the road, all the department heads work for the selectmen. I don't see why, it's no different than a CEO has a bunch of VPs under him. They all work for the CEO. They have a department that they're in charge of, but they ultimately answer to the CEO. The department heads ultimately answer to you guys. At least that's how I see it. I need to warn you.
And one of my other points is, years back, they went with a plowing budget, at like $300,000, they also used such a contingency fund. And they had to go to a special town meeting to get the okay to use funds. And I understand we have to supply an ambulance, just like we have to plow the roads, but you still have to go to the people.
No, we understand that. We're well aware that it's going to go, where eventually, I could see us going to a special town meeting. I personally want to see us try to collect as much as we can, a whole bunch of different avenues. There's a lot of things that are going to be on the table that's going to come out Thursday night when we meet with the chief. Everything is on the table, sale of equipment, a number of things, collection agencies. We want to make sure that we can get as much, of that money back.
We've also had discussions.
Before going to the taxpayer.
We've also had discussions with other assistant chiefs in the area who have been acting, not acting chiefs, but chiefs that held that position before. They use Comstar. They're very happy with Comstar. Their quote was that it is outstanding service. There are many services, after having this discussion with him, that are not being utilized right now, which could help us in this situation. Not only in collections.
Saying that, I'll repeat what I said last night. I mean, the board isn't necessarily finding that the issue is with Comstar, the billing agency.
I got a list of questions.
Go ahead.
Why you bring up Comstar? One of the questions is related to the billing. There's actually a couple of those questions are related to billing. And I understand that you guys want to stay with Comstar for the time being based on other information that you have, and I understand that. But I guess I have a question. In Thursday's meeting, a question got brought up about regionalization of billing as a possibility that some towns are going to. And Jason specifically said that they had asked Sanford and they were not interested. And I've heard, not directly but indirectly, that the fire chief of Sanford said that they would be interested. So I don't know why Jason said they weren't interested. I don't know whether Jason was potentially lying outright or whether it was a miscommunication. But I guess, do you know anything further about that?
I don't. Is that Jeff Rowe?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We can look into that, by all means. Everything's on the table. Every avenue is being looked at.
Again, I know you want to stay with Comstar. What concerns me is that it seems like that was a false statement by Jason. A false statement. in a public meeting that they had talked to them, and that concerns me.
And we can call the chief and find out.
So I don't know who we talked to, but obviously the chief I would have thought would have been the person we would have talked to. So, another thing on billing, and I guess it might be somewhat of a moot point, but is there, and part of this I think is the bunch of policies and procedures that seem to be lacking. You know, how long have we been doing this thing for? Since at least 2008, yet there was no policy or procedure about collections. So there seemed to just, you know, just by the seat of your pants, there was no, if it's over this is what we do, nothing. Same thing with monitoring billing. You know, all of a sudden, here it's over a year later, and we're hearing about all these problems, and now we want to switch. Well, that's what happened, I don't know however many years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when they switched to the other firm, is the other firm wasn't collecting, and blah, 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 and things were late, and, well, let's switch firms. We don't like them, let's switch firms. So it always seems to be the firm that's the problem, but I don't know. It sounds like maybe it's not the firm. But the other question remains is who's doing the monitoring? That, I guess, we're relying on Rescue to do that monitoring, and are they doing it?
That's what's been done in the past, and that things are changing right now. You know, we're going to have some more accountability than what has been done in the past.
Again, one thing I believe I said last night, it's all over, I don't know if it was last night or last week. I saw the receivables myself my first year in. I know they were coming to the treasurer. It was one of my questions. I've never felt, and even prior, my time on the budget committee, I've stated this publicly, I've never felt that they were sustainable. They simple math, they spend more than they bring in, their revenue isn't what it should be for a variety of reasons. It is what it is. If you bring in 70, you shouldn't be spending 140. It's very simple to me. But I can't answer why the receivables stopped coming, but we are working on that and trying to find out why. They were coming in 2011. I saw them myself. I had questions when I was first elected about how things are working. The checks were going to the Cole residents at that time. I kind of stomped my feet, put my foot down. The checks did end up coming into the office from Comstar in 2011, so that changed. Why the receivables would stop coming because we changed treasurer, I don't know. We're going to find the answer to that, though, I think. The email address didn't change, so why would those reports stop coming?
Have you guys seek any outside help from your position, so to speak, on this, besides our lawyer and our, I mean, it seems like the last time a selectman had an investigation, Karen, you were asked to sit out and nothing was found.
I think it's happening really quickly. We've sought out, a lot of help. We've talked to other area fire chiefs, rescue chiefs.
I guess what I'm saying is beyond that, beyond, a more professional than another volunteer service. We can all call up, I can call up, another landscaper and say, hey, how's this guy, or how's this work?
Do you mean another ambulance company?
No, I'm talking to some sort of investigator.
We're considering all kinds of things, audits.
Nothing's off the table.
Nothing's
off the table, and some things I'm not going to tip my hand to right now.
Because, I understand there's some personal issues involved, I understand, but you're also talking
A lot of money.
public funds.
Mhm.
You can only keep it quiet so long.
No, I don't think that we have been trying to keep anything quiet. Actually, we welcome the public and things being filmed and transparency. It's important for people to know that this has happened, this is happening, and I don't think the board is trying to hide anything.
No, and I'm not accusing. What I'm saying, I guess what I'm asking is, like I said, the last investigation we had was done by our selectman for sale, and
Yeah,
who knew that they was going to find nothing? I could have told you that.
and we've,
You didn't have to pay him and the town auditor to sit down and do that. You could ask me, I would sit down.
and maybe I shouldn't say this, but we've even come to find out that there is apparently no file for that.
I'll make one.
So I'm glad that I have the complaints in hand that I have, so. Personally speaking, I'm going to speak for Ben, I've talked to area fire and rescue chiefs. We are speaking with ComStar, legal counsel.
We haven't been able to get into ComStar yet. We are trying, have been trying for at least a month right now. We've gathered more information again by talking to other departments in the area. So that,
And ComStar won't talk to you because...
right, because they have to have authorization.
Did
which
you
is
guys tell them
happening.
you're their boss?
We have.
Then I would have your lawyer call.
Right, well, that was,
We just left the attorney's office.
we just left there, and that was one of the things. We've also, interestingly enough, we've been contacted by outside agencies and people that are seeing, hearing about it, and I appreciate that as well.
You guys spoke with Southern Maine EMS? By chance, Andrea Thompson, I think her name is?
I have not spoken with her.
But are there resources you guys have reached out to, or planning to, or thinking about, or?
Wouldn't have anything to do with finances and billing.
They wouldn't, about running a department, they don't really, they're purely on the medical
You've
side?
got enough rules right now, 166 pages on how to run this department. Maybe they need to be looked at. But I mean, as far as some of the resources they have, they don't really,
It's not applicable to what you need right now?
not what we need right now.
On, kind of back to billing, that ComStar report that was handed out on Thursday, there was no billings or gross commitments for August and September of 2013. I mean, like it was like $200 each month. So there was like no, and that was, from what I understand that report, gross commitments is billings that we as a rescue provides ComStar, which means that we as a rescue do not provide ComStar with any bills for August and any bills for September. Do you know if that's correct? Am I reading that report correct?
I believe you are.
And do we know why we're supposed to be doing it monthly, why that wasn't done?
We do know that it has been reported to us that they're behind on billing.
Karen, I have a question, because it came up the other day about why certain revenues weren't coming in, when obviously I think we can all understand the main care issue, that we know that. But there was also a question about Medicare certification. Medicare certification for vendors is done on a routine basis. And this was a whole lot of discussion about why it hadn't been done and why, you weren't getting Medicare payments. Do you understand any of that? I mean, this seems to me like this is on your, as for people who have worked in administration and healthcare, that this is something you have a date, you know when it's going to happen. You get your ducks in order real fast and on time, because this is going to delay your payments. Is there any reason that we know of that this just wasn't done on time?
That has been a complaint of hers, that she has said that, I can't speak to it. And again, we're not having receivables for so long and being very grateful that Jeanette spoke up that we weren't getting them. Again, when something's happening and then something just stops happening and you don't know, I'm not making an excuse. Why would it stop?
Yeah.
But
Jeanette did a great job. I mean, very, very appreciative
she's fabulous.
of what she's done. But I just find that not getting your certification prepared and getting that paper in is really just negligent and scary.
Do you know, speaking to her question, do you know if we've lapsed with Medicare? Medicare, Maine Care, do you know if we've lapsed? Because again, if we're not certified.
Again, that comes from ComStar, because I was talking with Jeanette today, so those reports are still what we would have to access ComStar for. So we are working very diligently to get into ComStar.
Because,
It will happen within days.
One of the questions, and this is from a person that does physician billing, is that if you lapse, then we may not be able to get those revenues unless the recertification is backdated to when we lapsed. And so, is there a penalty for that? And, you know what I'm saying, there's a bunch of questions that I have regarding that. So this is every 10 years. I mean, this should have been seen,
Right.
6 months in advance and started so that there's not a gap in payment. So
I think this was, and if I'm wrong, I think this is what Brad was talking about the other night about, how old are these?
That's
what I was coming
to.
We know we're not going to collect, things like, I personally people have deceased and you can't get water from it, a stone and all of that, but I'm not willing to give up on a lot of this. The fact that it hadn't been going out to collection, I'm going to tell you, I didn't know that it wasn't going out to collection. But we know now. So, go ahead.
Do you at this point have anything that you might be considering taking to the Attorney General's office?
Nothing's off the table.
Nothing's off the table, but nothing in my mind immediately for that.
I got a comment. Suppose I buy that subscription for $25, then all of a sudden I get a bill for $700 for that ambulance ride. Do you think I'm gonna pay that bill?
No, you're not.
You know what I'm saying, though?
I'd like to say good luck getting around.
They go through the mountains. But I'm just saying, if I bought that subscription, thinking that I'm gonna get a free ambulance ride, and then all of a sudden I get a bill for $700 for the ambulance ride, why would I pay that bill?
I think that's been a concern of all of us. It's like, even if they bill your insurance, then you're left with the copay, which may be more than you can afford too.
So I'm gonna lose my credit because of that. I call it a scam with the subscription.
Again, having reached out, having other departments reach out to us actually is how, and being able to ask them these questions, them having had subscriptions in that town at one point in time, we will be talking to them, I guess, because I don't know where we're going to stand on the subscriptions. I know a lot of residents like it. I mean, obviously it sounds good, but from some of the stuff that, if it works, maybe, it's not working right now. And some of the indications that this other assistant chief that we had talked to said they had issues in their town, and it caused a lot of problems. So I really want to pursue that and discuss that. I mean, if we're going to have to rebuild this from skeleton up, let's rebuild it right.
But you're not getting the canned goods that you were sold. You know what I'm saying, Ben?
I understand.
Thursday night, there'll be a vote. Thursday night, there'll be a vote on subscriptions. Things are going to be changing effective this week.
Are they still getting the stipend?
The stipends are going to be changing this week as well.
I'll go to zero.
This Thursday's meeting, is that a public meeting, is that a private meeting?
I suppose I feel it should be a public meeting. I guess we should probably find out if we have to go into executive session, but I think it should be a public meeting.
So many of these, issues kind of intertwine
With personnel.
with personnel performance and things like that, so we gotta think that one through. It should be public, I'm thinking, once it stays, because we're not gonna discuss personnel once we go into executive session.
Well, and it's also the board's desire to speak with the corporation officers, which I guess has been a challenge today. I was in school all day, but trying to get email and contact information. We know that Selectman Cole is the president, and then we have we have the treasurer, and then we have another person. I think that it's important that they come around the board and understand the situation and how things are going to change with the subscriptions. And this vehicle that's been that they've purchased that we're not accepting.
Do you know the people in the corporation already? Do you know everybody that you need to know?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was in the game before night.
It's just an issue of, getting them. I think we have an email and phone number on one of them, and so there is going to be an invitation out to them. I don't know if it's going to be for the Thursday night meeting or we'll pull them in next week. We can ask them to come in, but we don't have any authority over a private corporation.
Do you know how the Rochester Parade, Santa's Workshop,
That
things
is
like,
going to be discussed.
do you know how those are getting paid? Certainly the gas, I don't know whether stipends were paid for people being there or not, but there's certainly a gas issue, you know what I'm saying? Is that, Thursday's meeting, I think you guys talked about, having things pre-approved, you know what I'm saying? Were those pre-approved, is that coming out of the corporation side? Do we know that?
We don't know right now. Like you're saying, fuel for the parade and things like that. We don't know right now. but we are gonna discuss these things on this coming Thursday.
We have seen bills already that we're not paying.
Or in the past, but nothing to do with what you just said.
No, right. But, you know, what you just said is also going to be discussed on, you know, so I don't want to sit here tonight and talk about everything. We're going to talk with her Thursday night. But, you know, being in a parade is not essential.
But it's more than just gas. You're also talking about wear and tear on that vehicle.
I'm aware of it.
That's not employee issues though, is it? Wouldn't that be a public issue about the parade and where the money came from?
Right, but we can't go backwards. I mean, quite frankly,
Oh, right.
I didn't know that they were doing a parade.
But I
It's
mean,
past Sunday
asking
till
the
Sunday.
question in public would be that would be okay. I understand that there's certain things you can't
Yeah.
talk about, but if you were to go into executive session because you wanted a question asked,
Yeah.
you then could come out and announce the results of that. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
After it was gone in, am I right? Okay, thank you.
I think, you know, I think all of it is appropriate for a public meeting. It's just like Ben says, sometimes you get, it'll intermingle into, oh, whose fault was that? Oh, that's this one, and then that's personnel.
Understood.
Right, and we really need to stay clear of that in the public eye. Yep.
I think that your issues about the conflict of interest really have started to really boil in my head, because it's like, okay, this man and his company, corporation, knew this was going on, and you had a selectman who's involved in it, knew this was happening, and put the corporation before his job as a selectman. Because he should have been bringing this up to you people all the time. He had yet to come in and work with you. So this is truly very concerning to all of us, that a selectman allowed a bill to be $218,000 that the corporation he represents.
No, because you have to understand there's a difference between the private corporation and the town department. Okay, they're two separate entities. I know they like me mixed up on Facebook as one large title, but that's mixing apples and oranges and making a nice little fruit cocktail. Yeah, and truly that's what it is. So you got to separate the monies from what's actually the corporation. I have talked to the treasurer myself, so I do know what's in that corporation account. He showed me free will. I mean, it's nothing I can ask. I mean, I suppose I could ask, but he'd always say no, you know. But in discussion, he showed me readily, and there's not much there. I mean, nothing
Well, I
compared
guess
to what's
my
owed to
concern
the
is
town.
that you have a gentleman who's, and a chief who are both represented as the rescue department and the rescue corporation,
Right?
who knew that these bills were,
Right.
that's an issue. And that as a selectman and as a town, as a department head,
Yeah.
we're not bringing it to you.
Well, he's not the
Constantly.
department head, but yes,
No,
you're
but
right.
she is.
Yep. Yep.
Constantly bringing this to you and we're trying to make you aware of it.
Correct.
Versus us just finding out this whole big bundle of crap
Yep.
and having to deal with it. I'm just seems to me that they should have been bringing this to you all along. And you're saying, we've got to do something, we've got to do something. And so that's where I find it complicated.
I mean, I'll be perfectly blunt. I mean, money is not the motivating issue for Mr. Cole. It's public opinion. It's public perception. That's his commodity. So, I mean, why would he bring that forward to us? Honestly, I mean,
Well, I get that, but
and that's where we
in terms
stand.
of public perception,
Yep. Oh, I'm fully aware. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, I'm trying to make you aware of, you know, why it hasn't. You know, I understand. You know,
I don't know.
and understand, you know, how much cooperation we're going to get going forward in that manner.
Well, we truly appreciate the fact that you're working this hard.
I mean, it's-
Well, and equally concerning to me, as a sitting selectman in 2010, with a citizen's petition, I believe, on the ballot, to have the subscription monies pay for the ambulance, and then not have that happen, you know, and so that is more than being looked at, and again, you know, you can't get water from a stone or whatever, but going forward, I can assure you that things are gonna change with the subscription money as soon as possible, as in this week.
Toughest question that you probably can't answer, but from a business standpoint, if you've got a vice president that's not doing their job, you know what I'm saying, and you start working with them and try to figure out what they've done to screw up that department, you only allow it to go so long. Now, it's one thing if they're cooperating with you and they're trying to help you and they understand the error of their ways and they're going to change things and blah, 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 and they're cooperative. I don't get that's the feeling here. I get the feeling that from the posts that I see, the information that I see, they're thinking everything is fine. They're thinking they've got plenty of money, no problems. That doesn't sound like they're trying to fix the problem. So how long do you go with a department head who is in denial of the issue, using taxpayer dollars that are not allowed by law to be used? How long do you allow that to go? I understand you're trying to go slow, to have your ducks in a row, but at some point, she becomes a hindrance, and by extension, he becomes a hindrance to you guys being able to effectively change what you need to do with the rescue. So I guess, I don't know if that's a question or a statement, but I know it's probably personnel, you probably can't answer it, but I guess that's the frustration that I have, is that I know you're trying to get your ducks in a row, but I just see this wall being put up that you guys, and quite frankly, I don't know what's happening. I don't know if things are being destroyed. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? And the bottom line is you need to get a solution in place as soon as possible, while also making sure your ducks are in a row. So those are those two parts that you're trying to juggle. So I guess...
Okay, first, it is personnel, so we're not going to discuss it. Second, please don't think there isn't a plan in place. And third, you can't really compare a president of a corporation or whatever with a municipality. It's very different. The private sector, people could be fired on the spot, and it's different than, you know, a municipal.
Private, you can't do that anymore, especially if you're not a union shop, you can't do it. So I mean,
It's-
there's a lot of similarities, and quite frankly,
No, actually, municipal is actually a lot more difficult.
well, there may be issues, right?
But again, I'm not comfortable talking about personnel issues, and I won't do
Right.
it.
Right.
I think the other thing I think is it's important that even, because we're not taking this, that people do know that we bring up stuff, even though you can answer us, we understand when you can't, but that people understand that these have been the public's concerns. And that it gets reported and people say, okay, somebody has brought that up. Somebody is at least thinking the same way I am, or gee, I didn't think that way.
Will the chief and the assistant chief be there on Thursday?
Assuming so. If they're not, that's going to be a problem. Or if she is not.
I don't need the assistant chief there.
Excuse me?
I don't need the assistant chief.
No, I know you
there.
don't.
I need
I'd
the
like to
chief.
I'd like to correct that statement. It's Selectman Cole, guys. He is the selectman before he's assistant chief. And you guys have to separate that. Whether you feel as though you should do it or not, you've got to separate that. He is an elected official.
I feel that we do separate it
I
differently.
don't believe you do.
Whenever he's at the table and there's an issue on rescue, he does not contribute
He
as a
certainly
selectman.
contributed a lot the other night, and as you say, he was okay to do that. I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
Well, then you have to call the attorneys, because that's what they told me to say, that he has to recuse himself as a
Understandably
selectman.
so. I understand he has to recuse himself as a selectman, but he is still a selectman. He should be able to speak for the rescue. He is a selectman. We all know that. He's been
Well,
voted in
I want you
office.
to know that there's been plenty of meetings when I have had to multiple times ask him to stop speaking and for her to answer the question. So if that makes you feel better.
No, I understand the whole, I understand. Believe me. But you guys really need to drive it home, that he needs to sit on your side of the table.
See, I would strongly disagree with you anyway, right off
What's
the
that?
bat. I said I will strongly disagree with you anyway.
What's
Now,
that?
I have forced the hat on his head that he will wear, because there is a difference between an elected official and an employee of this town. He is
Certainly
both.
is.
And there are different rules to handle both.
There certainly is, but you.
Okay, so you don't crisscross. What you're saying is to crisscross across lines. And that's where we've been in trouble before in this town.
You've just stated there's a conflict of interest.
I know what my opinion is, but then you gotta go back to legality.
Then go find there's a legal.
I've found it.
What's that?
I've found it. I've researched it.
Then there should be.
And that's where we stand.
Well, and we've seen the conflict of interest. I will never deny there's not one. I mean, there's more than one in this town. 2011, it was on the ballot, and again, I asked, why did the people of Lebanon not pass that article? You know?
There isn't a judge in this land that's gonna overturn the vote of the people.
There's home rule, you know that. But there's some law, you've even stated yourself, you found a conflict of interest rule, go for it. Get your attorney on
Well,
it.
and you talk about, have him on our side of a table. We don't see him. I can't recall the last time in months he's been at a select
Well,
board
I'm
meeting.
not sitting here trying to bash this man personally. I'm just trying to get you guys to separate. Everybody's saying Assistant Chief Cole. He is a selectman, okay? He's never not a selectman. He could be thrown in jail tomorrow. He's still a selectman, okay? You're not unelected until you get voted out
No,
or
but
you recall.
Ben and I don't have any authority over him, his behavior, his attendance.
And
The people have control over that. As far as if, we've heard a lot about recall and things like that, that is up to the voters.
Right, understandably so. But I am requesting you two as selectmen to address her solely, not him. When he answers the question, stop him and address it to her.
Which we haven't done.
We have, maybe not enough that night, but
So,
we definitely
and
have.
I'm not trying to bash you guys.
No, I
Okay?
understand.
It's not an easy job, I've been
It's,
there.
yeah, you have, and it's frustrating.
Thursday wasn't really, anyway, for me anyway. I stayed very quiet and I did exactly what I wanted to do, because Thursday's meeting was the auditor presenting to us his findings, his opinion. And some things I take issue with, and that's a box of things that I have that I put on the shelf for now that will come back down. But right now, I have to deal with certain issues that I want to deal with right now.
If you thought about a second auditor,
Yes,
I guess back to my,
forensic audits, different auditors, every single thing that has been mentioned here tonight has been considered and is being thought of.
back to my original question. Has the chief accepted the invitation for the meeting or said she's going on Thursday?
We talked about it that night, and we were going to send out the email to verify the time for her this evening. We were trying to nail down the contact information for the corporation members. So that'll go out tonight. She knows there's a meeting, we just haven't given her the time.
Thank you.
On Thursday night, it was mentioned about a billing reconciliation between 2012 and 2013, because one of Ron's question that he asked several times was, why were the billings, so the billing was us billing, why were they significantly lower in fiscal 2013 than they were in fiscal 2012 if the call volume was the same? And quite frankly, all we ever hear about is the call volume being more, not the same or less. So, and we had asked, you guys, I'm not sure which one of you, I think it was you, Karen, had asked Samantha about, will you have that for us Thursday? And she said, yes. Do you expect that to happen? What happens if she doesn't have that? Is that on your list to make sure she has?
We have a full page list.
Okay, does she have that to make sure she has that available?
No, she
Or
heard
is
that
she
in
gonna
the
be able to
meeting.
say,
I'm
"Oh, I
not going to
forgot"?
micromanage her. She heard that in the meeting. She knows what she needs to have. And we have a whole list of things that we're going to talk with her about.
Okay.
Mostly changes. Yes, sir.
You can put the rescue department under the fire department's commands temporarily, or is that with the orders, or how does it work?
That's a good question. I believe we could, but I don't know. That's not something that I personally have considered.
It's several steps down the road, even if we did right now.
We don't know what the problem is, so we're not removing the problem and working on it.
again, you're talking personnel issues right now. So.
But is that on the table as far as, is that on the table for the rest of your department, the fire departments?
It used to be one under my father years ago, and I think it worked well. And it's unfortunate that, it's my personal opinion, so I guess it really doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, I think we can agree, everybody here can agree that the rest does a great job when they're out in the field. There's no question about it. We need them, we're by law supposed to have them. I've always supported them. I'm certainly not a big fan of the management. I was. Someone was a bigger supporter than me, right, Laura? Okay, when they first started their ambulance service. They saved the town a ton of money, we had a lot of money that we had to pay out for an ambulance service. They were in town, we got someone out of town. That was a big thing, that was a huge thing for us. Okay, unfortunately, it's gone the wrong way. And unfortunately, it's on your watch, and you guys have to do something about it. And this is a small group here that wants to see something done. But I think, it's the same thing. If the rest of the town people don't decide to involve themselves or inform themselves, you can't do anything about that. But let the rumors get flying like this does in this town, things get really bad for everybody.
Well, as you know, Darryl, from someone who sat behind this table, just because things look like they're not happening to the public doesn't mean that things aren't happening.
Right. I would just like to make one more comment. That is, I found it pretty sad when I sat down in a cafeteria in Newington, New Hampshire, and have people from towns not associated with Lebanon laugh at the town because of what's going on in the paper. And it's not the bickering, it's just the reporting.
You mean the press releases?
Everything. I don't need to know when someone puts a Band-Aid on somebody.
Agreed.
It's like I tell people, actions happen all over the place, we just don't choose to report.
Any other public input?
Yeah, why do I